welcome to Tran's Guide to Sands of Salzaar. This video consists of 2 chapters. On the screen right now you should see timestamps for the subsections of Chapter 1, as well as the timestamp to skip directly to Chapter 2, where you can find the maps. Chapter 1, Learning Legacies. When you start the game for the first time, you will have 60 legacy points. Because of the Spirit Master playthrough, I have unlocked 420 legacy points. But still, 60 is enough for you to buy 2 of any of these skills. So which 2 should you get? If you have a short attention span, I'm going to go ahead and give you the answers right now. You can pretty much ignore all of this data because it's not even relevant anymore, and I'll explain more of that later. But here, just pick any of these skills, the highest ranking down low. Well, I'm sure you can beat the game with Poison Sting. You'll have an easier time if you pick skills like Leaping Hack instead. Alright, so there's your answer. Now I'm going to talk about this stuff. This is recorded very late because they just released a patch that removed several skills. Pretty much all of the magic skills. In fact, there's only one magic skill left right here. Almighty Healing. It's in blue. That's how I know. These purple ones are what I call hybrid skills. And then these right here are statless skills, meaning it doesn't really take physical attack or anything. What are the physical attack ones? All these red ones. They removed pretty much all the magic ones because they felt that you could train them. Great. So I'm going to leave that cut content, where I was going to release it before they released that patch. I'm going to put it at the end so you can see what kind of content you're missing in the 0.9 version of the game. Let me go ahead and show you what those passive skills are, and then we'll move on to active demonstrations of each skill. So here we are in the January 7th, 2022 patch. They have replaced all of these cool, powerful magic skills with stuff like Run Faster. Here, this one doesn't sound so bad. It is quite expensive though. 50 legacy points is a pretty hefty price. As of right now, the Nameless cannot purchase any of these single legacy skills and can only purchase the legacy skill trees. Not really a fan of that, but alright. Hunting Mastery. You can deal 50% more damage to targets that are bound or bleeding. I mean, really? These are the skills you're going to replace Frost and Lightning Bolt with? To begin with, we will look at Scatter Shockwave. For this fight, we will show what your character is like at level 1 with basic equipment and basic stats. The horse is new, but it won't affect the battle at all. Now for this skill, you want to stay in front of the enemy. So for example, you wouldn't want to target them, you want to target in front. You notice how I get all 6 of them that way. We can see that the skill cooldown is rather slow, and it costs so much mana that I can only use it twice. However, it's easy to fix if you bring consumables with you. Next up is Swift Sword. This skill looks really cool, but I have trouble hitting too many targets with it. So in this case, I did hit 5 guys, but you'll notice that only one of them took maybe all 3 slashes. 2 of them took 2 slashes, and the remaining 2 took 1 slash. So instead of hitting 5 enemies with 3 slashes each for 15 slashes, I did, let's see here, 3, 6, 8, 9, 10. 10 slashes, so I did 2/3 the damage. So it is for these reasons why I give it 3 stars. Next up is Slicer. This is a 5-star skill. It is a ranged ability, and it does do bleed, which is a static value. As a ranged ability, I mean I could just cast it here and I can be safe. It also has a nice wide range, so I actually hit all those guys. Next up is Rampage. As with many of the physical attacks, Rampage looks cool. You can think of it as a weaker, shorter range version of Slicer that also costs more mana, has a higher cooldown, and doesn't even inflict bleed. I mean, sure, it got the job done, but Slicer does it better. Next up we have Fireblade, a skill so pathetic that the game just released a patch today just to give you a value in text. It used to say do 0 damage. It might as well say that, because this is what it's like. You'll notice that the fire stays there, so the enemy actually has to be standing in it for you to do any consistent damage. Does it do enough damage to make it worthwhile? Well, let's take a look. You have to remember that for them to be sitting in it, you're going to have to be taking up all this damage. For all the other skills I was doing, I was running around in circles. With that one unit of 6 enemies, I almost died. Next up is Strike. This one I rank as a 4-star physical skill. There's quite the delay before you activate, but you'll notice that it ended up sending the enemy flying backwards, stunning them momentarily. not that bad. I always like abilities that stun enemies. I would forgive you for thinking I'm about to do Scatter Shockwave again, but this one's Power Leap. It does pretty much the same amount of damage. The notable difference is there's an automatic backflip involved here. If the enemy were ranged, you would actually eat up a lot of damage through that backflip. I have not noticed any extra evasion with it. It does look cool though. Next up is Bloodletting. This one I consider 2 stars. If you for some reason like setting the enemy to have a low damage bleed effect, this skill's for you. You can see that's regularly ticking about 30 damage each time. When you compare that to the other bleeding skill Slicer, we can see which one's the clear winner. Now for some reason there's a lot of jumping abilities. This is another one of them. This one's called Leaping Hack, and I rate this as a 5-star skill. It has an extremely fast cooldown. I can already use it. Leaping Hack has a 5-second cooldown, whereas the first skill I showed you, Scatter, has a 12-second cooldown, and Power Leap, the one with backflip, has a 15-second cooldown. This one requires a little bit more finesse. This is Incision, which is basically a thrusting attack, so the enemy can't be bunched up like this. They pretty much have to form a line before you can do anything with it. I rank this one 4 stars. Next up is Raid. Like with Incision, you want your enemies lined up, but that's not the important part of this. The important part is you can basically go to the other side of a group of enemies if for some reason you want it to be on the other side. While positioning can be important in games, in this one, it's generally more of practical value just to kill the enemy, with any one of the other skills I've shown you. After Raid, we have its little brother, Charge. I consider this a 2-star skill because it does less damage per skill level and per physical attack, but it does travel 200 cubits further, whatever that means for you. Following Charge, we have Shield Bash. I rate this one 3 stars because it gives you health, well, shields. Now that shield quickly went away in the onslaught of the enemy thieves, but you'll notice that I didn't suffer as much damage as I might have otherwise done because of shield. You see, basically, I lost that chunk of health. I just pretty much lost my shield. That's all it is. The shield I get is equivalent to the number of damage I would do. So the higher your physical attack, the more shield you get. You can also get shield if you hit nothing at all. Alright, we have Trample. This I count as a 4-star ability just based off its damage alone, but it could also set up the enemy for some incredible abilities. It basically drags everybody into the center and then stuns them. They seem a little bit confused by this attack. I wouldn't consider that normal behavior. So they're fixed now, I think. And if we took Shield Bash and turned it into a 0-star skill, we get Mirage. It basically makes you invisible and gives you health. Now, with shields, you can use that even if you're full health and you'll get something back. With this, you have to be damaged first. You'll notice I get 166 health and it costs me 125 mana. Shield Bash gives me 167 health and costs 50 mana. So let's go ahead and get hit a little bit. And we'll just go ahead and use that. Ooh, I'm invisible for 5 seconds. Basically, I can do nothing for 5 seconds. I can hit them, but my invisibility breaks. So what's the point? I mean, I suppose if I want them to attack somebody else, sure. Remember though, the hardest battles in the game, or at least for me, have been solo matches. Now that being said, I've really only had experience playing the Spiritmancer for that one playthrough. Well, actually it was 3 playthroughs of Spiritmancer. I'd say Mirage is a weaker and more expensive version of Shield Bash. Now, if you needed to disrupt enemy formation or them using their abilities or something, you could use Wild Smash to that effect. I rank this 4 stars because instead of 100 points damage like mini skills, it gets 125 per skill rank, and instead of 1 point per physical attack, it gets 1.4 damage points per physical attack. This one's actually one of my favorite skills. Cloud Pierce is a ranged attack, and it looks cool. It's also easy to hit a group of enemies. I rank this one 5 stars because of the sheer AoE potential of this. It doesn't go through objects though, so you want to watch out for that. Every skill seems to have some sort of weaker version of itself that does one thing different. Homing arrow is one of those. Now, while it is weaker, I do actually rank it 5 stars. So let's first show you how not to use it. If you target the guy in the front, wow. Now this does have a 3-second cooldown, which is among the quickest skills in the game. Now, think about this, it's actually, you can aim through objects. You can aim through people. That one was a little hard to see, but let's try aiming through the rock again. Now, darn it. There we go, I hit that guy. That's still very hard to see. There, I got that one, see? Alright, so that's not really the reason though. That was just a gimmick. The real value in this is I can hit everybody that goes through. And so with the 3-second cooldown, you can just basically spam this all day long. I rate this 5 stars because I'm gonna hit everybody in between you and your target. For this one, we switched characters because this skill uses physical and magic attack. Binding shot. It hits only the first guy and binds him for 5 seconds. Binding is not like freezing. You can see that he can still attack me even though he's bound, so it didn't really change much of anything. It doesn't have the penetrating ability of homing shot. It doesn't hit more than one guy like Cloud Piercer. It just basically holds a dude in place. The next skill we have is a utility skill that increases my damage boost by 10 and makes me invisible. So let's see how much damage we do. With the normal attack, it did this much damage right there. Alright, with the damage boost. So it basically went from about here to there. That's with the special ability. Now that being said, 10% of a level 1's stats and newbie gear is not going to be that substantial. However, I still rank this as a 0-star skill because 10% of a skill, even a high-level skill, you'd be better off using another high-level skill. Like, think about it that way. Is I could have one good skill and then this boosted by 10%, or I could have 2 good skills and basically boost my damage by 100%. Remember how I said my spreadsheet basically only calculated damage? Well, Poison Sting is an example of that. I do not like Poison Sting, but I rank it as 2 stars. That's basically it. It does 0.5% of damage at rank 1, I believe. I've hit stronger enemies with the same rank skill and it did more damage. That's basically it. The only reason it ranks so well is it has a somewhat quick cooldown and it's just be relatively easy on your mana. I don't like how slow the dart is. The dart were actually much faster, that would be one thing. But it's not always easy to hit your targets. So let's say if I were to go over here and I maybe aim it up here. Oh, there we go, just missed entirely. Now that being said, I deliberately missed it. But many of the skills, there's plenty of wiggle room for you to not actually accurately put your mouse on the dude. Alright, this next one's a bit odd. It actually is free in mana to use. I think the animation should be as if you're breathing fire like Karnov or something, or a carnival dude, but your dude just sticks out his hand and a little wave of fire rushes out of the enemy. It's totally free. That'd be pretty cool if it was also very fast on cooldown, but it's not. That's Flame Sprayer. It did almost no damage to the group. The main value of this is reducing the enemy's magic defense by 100%. We'll look at the practical differences of that when we get to the magic portion of these skills. And the last physical skill is Combat Recovery. So this gives me 232 health, so let's go ahead and use it now, and we'll keep fighting. You can see that I'm not out healing the enemy. I'm just better running away from them. But as it stands, I give this 0 stars. Even if you were the Berserker, you can still get more mileage out of the magic healing rather than physical healing. In our line of pointless 0-star abilities, we have Flicker. This evades a short distance based off of your facing, not your mouse. So I'm going to have my mouse behind them, hit Flicker, and my character just takes a step forward. About that far. Would you pay a talent point and one of your legacies to get this skill? I don't really think so. If the enemy were in front of you and you wanted to get behind them, sure. In fact, they didn't even really get me past that squad. They just swatted me anyways. It also cost an incredible 150 mana for such a useless skill. it does increase your evade by 10% times your skill level, so up to 30%, meaning you could evade 1 in every 3 shots maybe. Planning on getting hit isn't exactly an ability to sing songs about. So in order to really see what this skill is like, let's just shoot this bow and see how long we can last. The reason for this is the next ability that I wish to showcase is Illusion Cloak, which gives me protection from range damage. We managed to do 955 damage and kill 1 dude. I basically increased my damage by about 50%, and I was right about to kill the second dude. Let's try pitting it up against the Deceptive Totem. Deceptive Totem lasts for 20 seconds with a cooldown of 40. It tries to taunt the enemies. It won't guarantee that the enemies focus on it. It'll do roughly 1 skill's worth of damage when it dies or fades out. In this case, it would do 295. Finally, it inflicts terror for 2 seconds per skill rank. When the dude who's out of screen, he's actually still shooting at me. Okay. Now, obviously I could have done better if I intentionally moved around, dodged, and waited for cooldown and all that. Again, that's not the point of this. We're not actually trying to win the battles. We're just saying what kind of difference these skills make, and if you find them useful. As another hybrid skill, we have Silent Tempest. Basically, renders the enemy mute for 8 seconds, which is okay, but you have to keep in mind, it's not like it freezes their cooldowns or anything. Now that being said, it is a range attack, it has a large area, it just doesn't do much damage, which you know, is okay if it's just a status ability. In most RPGs, players actually ignore status abilities. It's just easier to kill the enemy. Imagine if I was throwing alchemy at these guys. By this point, they'd all be dead. We have the weaker version of the fire elemental, Call Wolf. Like the fire elemental spell, this actually increases in tier when you reach level 3. Now let's try maxing out and seeing what we get with the rank 3 spell. But as you can see, evolving the wolf is pretty important. The tier 3 wolf will start to get outclassed by around level 7. The last ability is the magic version of combat recovery. Now, be careful because I can't just hit Q right now and heal. Like, I'm mashing Q, nothing's going on. This is a skill that can actually be targeted on an ally, which also improves its effectiveness. But in that same vein, you need to target yourself for the skill. So if I'm pressing Q now, nothing's going on. I need to hover over myself and then I can click Q. That's not actually an aura effect, it's just magic animation. It doesn't regenerate or last for a while. It does heal, and it's basically twice as fast as combat recovery. This is still a great spell, even if you're a physical combatant. If you're comparing this single skill demonstration with actual gameplay, I'm sure you found it lacking. Well, this is what it looks like when you start stringing these skills together. Chapter 2, Surveyor of the Sands. Alright, this was 2 days of labor, and I hope that they're really useful to you. Towards the end of this chapter, I will show you what they are. But for right now, I'll describe the most important bits. First off, green icons indicate that you can bring your army into battle. The number indicates the level. So in this case, for this jade item here, you can bring in your whole army and its recommended level is 3. Yellow icons indicate that you are only able to bring heroes with you, and the recommended level will be 5 here. Red icons indicate that you must fight this battle alone. The recommended level for this one is a 15. This version of the map shows you every notable location in Redstone Valley. In case you're doing post-game content, let's clean up the map a little bit for you. You can see here that pretty much everything has been wiped out, except for a few things that I personally thought might still be useful to a player who has beaten the entire story and is looking for nothing more than to become overpowered. Even after having beaten the game, I still feel that Umbra Cliffs is probably the best place to start. You can find low-level equipment very easily in the south. I really like the experienced crystals in the northeast, and Couriers, at least in the version I had played, are fantastic additions to your army. And finally, of note, there are numerous jade chests available for the taking, even without having to clear any bandit camps. I don't find the 1 or 2 jade in the bandit camps to be all that valuable, but I'll leave it here just in case you aren't conquering the world or something. Umbra Cliffs has my seal of approval for starting a new campaign. You can see that even after we've cleared aside the board, that there's still plenty of points of interest for you in the post-game era. The level 16 prisons tend to give rare creatures that can be valuable. Zagros Mountains is the absolute largest area in the game. This is where I made my final base of operations in my Spiritmancer playthrough, just because it's such a high-leveled area and reaches everything but Twinluna Valley and the Ifrit domain. Similar to Umbra Hills, once you clear away all the low-level instances, you can see that there's a plethora of post-game content waiting for you to conquer it. And this is why Zagros Mountains became the stronghold of Mantis the Spiritmancer. West Docana Desert is to the far northeast of the entire playable region in Sands of Salzaar. It is also one of the most featureless places in the game, but thankfully your mini-map will be enough to guide you from place to place. Almost anything that is worthwhile is accompanied by some sort of terrain marker, and thankfully it's just not in the random middle of the desert. Because it's so featureless, this is my least favorite area to hang out in. Once we sweep clean some of the areas, we can see that there is some worthwhile points of interest for the post-game character. Twinluna Valley is just to the west of Docana Desert, and is absolutely swarming with Radiance cultists. This will also be the map you'll want to pay special attention to if you start the game out as a Sultan. When we clear out all the material, we can see that this region is not very kind to the post-game character. Not all maps have an equal amount of content, as suggested by the caravan at the beginning of the game. If you try to go anywhere besides Umbra Hills or Redstone Valley, the game itself warns you that there isn't as much content to the area you're going to. Speaking of which, the caravan does not take you to Crying Rock. I'm not sure if that's an oversight or what. North of Redstone Valley is Crying Rock. This area is ruled by the Docana. One of the reasons I'm talking that way, I'm giving you time to pause if you're currently in the area and you'd like to just freeze frame here to see what's up. As with before, let's clean the map a little bit in case you are entering post-game content. If you're looking to have a base of operations that is easily defendable, Cryptic Rock in the west is probably the way to go. There are a couple other transition markers on the map, such as entering the mines and such. I don't have any reason to believe that that's important enough to be placed on the map. If you have a quest there, you'll end up there without the need of a map. And of course, this wouldn't be a Tran level guide without even including the Ifrit domain. It's actually fairly plain in that there's only a couple variations of what you can do here. Still, it's all high level stuff, and you might find it worthwhile. I left the wells there since they can drop jade. I personally didn't find the prisons worthwhile, but you might appreciate them a lot more than I did. But the map you're looking at now is the stuff that I would be interested in the post-game era. Here's a list of every single town in the game. Sands of Salzaar had added towers at some point within the past 2 years. Towers are defensive structures which do not do anything for your economy. There is a column that counts how many construction zones exist. Let's go ahead and sort by descending projects. We can see that Frost Valley, that was my base of operations, has 8 construction zones. No jade camps, however. Then we get to the villages, places with just 1. Now there is a town with nothing in it, Bactrian camp. I imagine that was just an oversight by the developers, and I'm sure that they'll take care of it when they figure that out. Now, I'm going to go ahead and sort this in a more informative way for you. We'll go ahead and sort this by ascending, and so this way, if a person tells you, hey, I need you to bring this letter to Adobe Village, and you have no idea where it is, well, you don't even have to say no to the quest. Just Alt-Tab to this video, Control-F, and type in the Adobe Village. I'll put it in the description so you can see where it is. So it's in the Crying Rock in the southwest. Maybe someone asked you to bring something to Golden Bazaar. That's in Twinluna Valley. This is sorted by alphabetical order for towns so that you can complete your quests. I have had quests that lead me to the free domain as well. The little purple wizard icon on the map, that means that you can get training here for any of your arcane abilities. remaining information from here is fairly basic material. I'm going to leave a timestamp on the screen now if you'd like to skip to the next section. In a few locations around the world, there'll be food areas. If for some reason you just don't feel like buying food or you're absolutely starving, you can hit one of these. You can starve up to 4 days normally, and then on the 5th you will respawn. There are lots of sawmills throughout the world. You don't have to run up to each one just to check it out. It has lumber. What else were you expecting? There's only a couple sites on the map that currently give iron ore, but in case it was hard to tell, I wanted to make sure to explain what this icon was. Jade is an extremely valuable resource in the game. You can find them as white chests, as well as a naturally occurring resource that looks like that teal rock. I'll go show you one. But these white chests, this is what it looks like as compared to the tan normal chests. If you pick it up in the morning of day 1, it'll be ready on the morning of day 31. If you pick it up on the first night, it'll be ready on the 31st night. So it's 30 days from the time you pick it up. Here's the jade sitting on the floor, not as a chest. Jade isn't always only found in chests, though that is the best way to get them, because as your character gains levels, the jade chests get larger. No such thing happens with dungeons during this version of the game. Even at level 20, I still get 1 to 2 jade. These little whirlpools are just map travel. There is one spot in the map that can increase your backpack. He's in Redstone Valley, where you would spawn if you use the intro caravan. You can even use them as a warehouse. Every increase in slot is 500 Utar, and you can increase all 60 at once if you felt like it, or just 1. An animal merchant sells you random creatures of the wilderness, which unfortunately they don't really sell you a full stack, so you won't be able to promote it unless you find another one. That's the kind of thing free-to-play or mobile games do, where you need several components of the same thing just to upgrade it or do something with it. A mount merchant does exactly what it says on the tin. He sells you mounts. They may require a level, but you just pick one up, sit on it, and go faster. Bookstores are among my favorite sites in the game. It's just they never seem to have enough books for me. 1 book at a time, really? That's the kind of store you're running? You have a whole building to run that. Well, anyways, spin jade, get skills. If the book isn't marked with a level, then it's just a merchant. If the book is marked with level, specifically the 2 in Zagros Mountains, that is a forbidden library where you can get stat increases. There are bazaars that appear periodically throughout the world. If you're playing Sands of Salzaar because you like RPGs, you should definitely drop by it when you can so you can increase your stats and become a god. Enchantments are fantastic. They're absolutely great, and they're definitely worth the jade. Take any of your pieces of gear, even an enchanted piece of gear, and enchant it again. It won't enchant it further, it will just basically re-roll the stats. So let's say that you had a dagger of leech. If you go enchant it, won't be a dagger of leech anymore. As you can see here, you can even enchant mounts, and yes, it does grant you stats. Scattered around the map, you'll find wizards that are willing to trade an item for 5 jade. There's a recommended level here, and I feel like I might have encountered a battle here maybe once, so if you do wander in, you should be aware of the fact that you might enter a level 12 battle. There are 2 siege spots in the game. One siege spot requires you to have a squad of 8, another siege spot requires you to have 15 friendly points with the area. towns in the version I played didn't have names. Now they all have names, so I think my section on maps will be especially important for you. There will be a village elder and no mercenary captain. And with the exception of one village, they all have one building site in them. I've seen other people do playthroughs and they don't seem to realize that there's a difference between cities and towns, or at least that's what I call them. Cities are the main hub. The cities have a mercenary. They do not have a village elder. Cities also have access to a sanctuary, which is basically like a dungeon, except you just go right up against the boss. Only in select cities will you find waitresses in a tavern or tools with a merchant. Later in the game, all cities can sell wisdom crystals. If you own a city, you can generally have 6 to 9 construction sites in that area. Ifrit towns are better in every way than human towns. Now I'm going to have to tell you at this point that I don't know if you can get Ifrit towns anymore. Even though I'm running the game on a current version, the save file I have here, I already own these Ifrit towns. Ifrit towns are superior in every way in that every building slot is completely flexible. You put anything you want on these slots. My advice? Jade camps. A banner can be used to respawn at that location or return to it using your scroll. It's fairly useless as you can always return back to any area that you own a trading permit for. Trading permits last by what I call districts, which is its main city and then any surrounding outposts. I call these monoliths. If you interact with them, you'll get a prestige shard, which will give you a fragment of a star. When your star gets full, you get a talent point. Just call them a talent shard, I don't know. Abandoned adventurer camps have repair tools so that you can engage in the exciting mini game of keeping your legendary equipment from falling apart after a battle. Not all caves are food caves. There are some caves in the Umbra hills that are what I call experience caves. Not experience as in you kill the monsters to get the experience. There's that. No, you will always get one recovery item and an experience crystal. Soldier crystals can be spent on you or your soldiers. Here I'm just going to spend it on myself. There are low-level areas in Umbra Hills and high-level areas in the Ifrit domain where you can enter a battle with your heroes in order to get equipment. There's only one of these portals in the game right now. This is a great spot. Upon your victory, you'll get a random troop. As with prisons, my issue is you might need to find that troop more than once in order to do anything with them. But there are achievements associated with these monsters. There are prisons of all levels in this game. I don't find the level 20 prisons in the Ifrit domain to be that valuable because it gives you split prisoners, and these are split tier 4, tier 5 human faction prisoners, of which there are many. You would be faster off just raising a Nasir militia from tier 1 to tier 5. In the Ifrit domain, there's also White Rose Shacks. Go in there, get one potion. White Rose potions are used to recover wounded regiment soldiers. At least right now, heroes, or companions, or party members, what do you want to call them, don't suffer any long-term damage for falling in combat. I hope that doesn't change. There are invisible wells, well that's what I call them, in the Ifrit domain. You go there, you fight, and then your character is given the Exile perk for 1 day. This Exile perk is the same as if you were defeated. When you have it, enemies won't chase you down. The door with the crossed swords, that's a dungeon. Dungeons require you to bring in a party of anywhere from 0 to 3 extra allies, and you'll probably encounter 1 to 3 fights and then a boss. Heroic souls are tough fights. I really think they're too tough of a fight though. I actually think they're not balanced, especially for the loot that you get. I feel that they should be much weaker or perhaps scale with something, whatever the case is. I don't think it's in a good spot right now. By the time you can reliably beat these fights, it's not worth it. What's the point? Heroic souls appear periodically throughout the game. You'll have to pay attention to the news report, and it'll show a little red icon in the bottom left when something has happened. The skulls are boss fights. They're all self-explanatory except for the one on the far left of Redstone Valley. That one, just drop off any spear that you are willing to lose and then fight the battle there. Defeating these bosses rewards you with legacy points that you can use when you create your next character. Currently there is a time limit where you must beat them under 120 days. If it's your first time encountering the boss and you haven't learned its movements yet, you'll probably lose, so definitely make a save, because you only get one chance at these bosses, with the exception of the Wind Chaser. And definitely don't feel that as a waste to spend consumables on these bosses. So we'll cut to the meat of it. If you're just looking for what to pick right now for your character, pick any of the top ranking skills if you're a physical based unit here. Yes, even Burning Vial and Lightning Bolt are solid skills, even if you're a Berserker in this case. It just does so much damage. If you're building a character that's not, say, a physical-based character, any of the highest listed skills here will work. Or if you're building a magic user, any of these highest skills will work. So yes, even Homing Arrow is solid for a wizard, but you'll have good results, better results with Burning Vial and Lightning Bolt. One thing to note is some skills can be obtained during the course of the game, though you'll obtain them much later. So for example, to unlock alchemy training and dark training, you need to hand over a level 12 legendary item. To unlock the others, you basically need to beat level 16 or 18 dungeons. That can be pretty tough if you're deciding to go without these spells, such as Lightning Bolt and Frost. You won't lose the talents, so if you already have Frost and then you learn Ice training, you will still have that level 1 rank of Frost. You will have the requisite level 1 skill still activated, so allowing you to progress to the level 2 Ice spell. One thing to note is that if your character is not able to cast any magic, he can still cast these if they are learned through Legacy. A person with no Arcana ability can never learn Air training, but if you pick it as Legacy ability, he can totally cast Lightning Bolt. We can see here that the Berserker has the highest physical attack. Whenever a character levels up, they get their starting level 1 stats over again. A Berserker, when he reaches level 2, he will get another 9 strength. Then when he reaches level 3, he'll get another 9 strength. When the Spirit Mancer levels up, he'll get 3 strength, and then he'll get another 3 strength, and so forth. With all our physical-based abilities, I will be demonstrating it through the Berserker. With any hybrid skills, I'll be demonstrating it through Celine, who is a free expansion/DLC character by the official developers of the game. So there's no reason for you not to go and pick it up. And finally, for any magic abilities, we'll be using the Spirit Witch. Spirit Mancer is just as good, except he shows up with a companion, which will interfere with our skill demonstration process. What this column represents is magic growth potential, so the Jackal, Shaman, and Berserker will never be able to learn magic during the course of the game, outside of any legacy selections that you pick. The Sentinel can learn only the basic level of spells, Celine can learn the second tier of spells, and all the Masters can learn all 3 or the highest ranks of these spells. Alright, so let's take a look at how we calculate this. Up here, we can determine the skill Scatter Shockwave. I currently rank it as a 3-star ability. It's average. It starts with a base of 75, and then here it takes your skill rank and multiplies that by 125. So at level 3, it gets 375. At level 1, or level 2, it gives me 250 points, and at level 1, it gives me 125 points. And then that it's added to the physical attack times 1.5. So in this case, if you had 240 attack, which is what the nameless character will have at level 20, you will do 360 with that. Or a total of 560 damage with a rank 1 shockwave and level 20 nameless with no equipment. We can fluctuate this, so let's say you're a Berserker, these will be your stats. You can see that the damage has gone up. Here we have, for Magic User, a 2-star skill. Fireball used to be pretty cool as a basic fire arcana, I don't know how you say it, spell, because it used to shoot 3 fireballs. Now it's just 1 fireball. Its saving grace is it's a low cooldown, but it's not easy to hit multiple targets with this fireball. If we take a look at its range, we can see that it says within 200 cubits. Let me load the Berserker back up and we'll show you just what those cubits really represent. Oh boy, poor Fireball. What did the developers do to you? Look at that, I didn't even hit the 3rd guy right here. Assuming that this range represents cubits, you can see here on the hammer, it says hammer blunt, weapon speed, and then 250 range. Remember that Fireball does 200 range, or 200 cubits. Again, I'm assuming these numbers are the same. A knife gives me 100 range, and a spear gives me 450. So this is half the range of a spear and a little bit less range than a hammer. Frost is a 5-star skill. Now, just so you know, I am referring to magic users. For a balanced character, or even a physical character, I would count this as a 4-star skill. There was a bit of delay on that, but you see that it froze them as well. Its cooldown is okay. It's not super horrible, it's not super quick either. Now that one was unscathed, but still, it is easy to hit a group of enemies, and it does do decent damage. This next spell is 5 stars regardless of your stat allocation. It is Lightning Bolt. It's a single target spell, yet it gets ranked so high because of its incredibly fast cooldown and high damage. Doesn't matter where the dude is, as long as you're looking at him, you can pretty much hit him. He can be in the middle of a group, and you can still get him with Lightning Bolt. Okay, let's see how Lightning Bolt does when we use it with Flame Sprayer. 294 with Lightning Bolt by itself, and then we'll Flame Spray and then Lightning Bolt. 428. Now I will grant that this lasts for 5 seconds, so you might actually squeak out a second spell on the target. I mean, I can see this having use if you were, for example, a team of 4 fighting a boss, but I'm trying to think of solo battles. Next up is Blazing Missile. This skill does shoot out 3 bolts, but I go ahead in my calculations for AoE damage, just say that I'm hitting 2 people at a time, because that's what I average out to do. You can see there that I did hit 2, in fact. Let's try again now that they're at mid-range. Alright, I still would have hit 2, except one of them blocked that damage. Now the other one evaded the damage. Again, it would be 2. So for my AoE calculations, I count as if 2 bolts will hit the target. That one happened to hit all 3. Here we've got Shadow Meltdown. Within 2,000 cubits of your character, she will hit a single target. And that target will suffer decent damage. This actually I rank as a 5-star skill because you can cast it so quickly, her casting animation aside. Now that little mist around the enemy means that he is damage taken by 20% for 8 seconds. In most games I play, alchemy kind of sucks. In this game, it does not. It owns them. You can see that they're still suffering damage even though they're not in the circle. Now imagine if they stayed in the circle, which is not something you necessarily want to do as a wizard, but they're basically dead from 1 cast. Next up is Fire Elemental. With this spell, we include our first summon. Well, let's see how it does against the first dungeon. This is a game changer at the beginning levels. While it looks very intimidating right now, your summon will begin getting outclassed by level 10. This is one of the skills that I would suggest ranking up all the way, because at rank 3 it actually evolves to the next tier of elemental.